hola. Hola, hola. Hola, hola, hola. ¿Cómo ven? Okay. Hello, everybody. We are going to start. So, officially, welcome to the Bilateral Energy Summit. Let's see a video, very short. We officially start. Thank you to our speakers, sponsors, members, volunteers, and the ATCC staff for, make it possible. I am Ariel Bocio, Vice President of Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce, and I will be the Master of Ceremony. So now we are going to see a video, we are going to watch a video of the main sponsor, Petroleum.
En Vaca Muerta. Energía combinada para el crecimiento del país.
So now we will continue with the opening remarks. We have here Ariel Masud, ATCC President, and Diego Zucalesca from Argentina, Executive Director and President. Please, Ariel.
Hello. Well, thank you very much to everyone. Good afternoon. I want you to welcome to the Bilateral Energy Summit Argentina-Texas 2026, jointly organized by the Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce and Prom Argentina. It's a true pleasure and an honor to have nearly 400 of you here at the Petroleum Club in Houston, plus the one connecting by live streaming. The Argentina-Texas Chamber of Commerce, ATCC, is a non-profit organization founded in 2016 with the mission of strengthening economic and institutional ties between Argentina and the state of Texas. Our more than 300 members, individuals and companies based in Argentina and Texas, works together to promote trade and investment in key sectors such as energy, technology, real estate, food, healthcare, and professional services. Our activities are anchored by 6 chapters, 3 of them in Texas, in the cities of Houston, Dallas, and Austin, and 3 in Argentina, Buenos Aires, the Central Region, and Neuquén, Patagonia. Today, the present and the future point to a genuine alliance between Argentina and Texas, one that strengthens our ties and allows us to identify and act on concrete opportunities. On behalf of the ATCC Executive Board, I would like to extend a special thanks to Prom Argentina, the Argentina Investment and International Trade Promotion Agencies, as a co-organizer of this event, representing it at this summit by Executive President Diego Zucalesca. I also want to thank all our sponsors who make this week activities possible, In particular, Pan American Energy, Progel, Duxa Oil, Duralight, Plus Petrol, TCB, Quintana Energy, Oilfield Production Services OPS, and United Airlines. I would also like to acknowledge the government representatives from both countries who are here today. From the Argentine Consulate in Houston, Daniel Beltramo, Carlos Martinez, and Vanina Chanino. We are honored to have representation from 5 Argentine provinces along the Vaca Muerta value chain. From the province of Neuquén, Governor Rolando Figueroa, Guillermo Koenig, the Minister of Economy and Industry, Gustavo Medele, the Minister of Energy, Leticia Esteves, Minister of Tourism, Environment and Natural Resources, Fernando Banderet, the Mayor of Añelo City, Claudio Larraza, the Mayor of Plaza Huíncul, from the province of Rio Negro, Mario Figueroa, the Secretary of International Relations, and Romina Rodríguez Luge, the President of EDIPSA. From the province of Mendoza, Manuel Sánchez Bandini, the Secretary of Energy, Lucas Erio, the Director of Hydrocarbons. From the province of Córdoba, Guillermo Acosta, the Minister of Economy and Finance, Inés Gerbaudo, the President of the Oil and Mining Cluster of Córdoba. And finally, representing the province of Salta, Carlos Zapata Rivero, National Congressman. I also want to highlight and thank Marcelo Rucci, the General Secretary of Oil and Gas Workers Union of Rio Negro, Neuquén, and La Pampa, the top labor authority in Vaca Muerta, whose presence and support reflects the alignment of all the stakeholders around this shared vision. I also want to extend the local organization support and the State of Texas authorities, Way One, the Executive Director of the Railroad Commission of Texas, Tim Tarpley, the President of the Energy, Workforce, and Technology Council, whose support is key to our work on both sides. And also, let me mention another supporting organization as the Argentine General Consulate, Pro Córdoba, University of Houston, ADIMRA, the cluster, Vaca Muerta cluster, and the World Chamber of Commerce of Texas, and finally, Pro Mendoza. Please join me in a round of applause for all of them. Let me take a few minutes to talk about why this event matters and why the alliance between Argentina and Texas is more important than ever. Argentina has been going through a fundamental shift since late 2023. The country has moved decisively toward market-oriented policies aimed at building the foundations for long-term sustainable growth. That means fiscal discipline, reducing inflation to manageable levels, and critically, opening the door to the kind of private and foreign investment Argentina needs to close its investment gap and expand its productive capacity. In that context, the energy tech sector stands out as the single greatest driver of economic transformation for Argentina, and here is why. The first point is Argentina needs to add over 10 percentage points to its investment rate to meaningfully expand supply and reduce poverty. Foreign investment is the primary lever to close that gap, and energy is where the opportunity is clearest. Vaca Muerta gives Argentina something rare: cheap, abundant energy in a world that is actively looking for diversify its supply sources. Flexible, scalable shale production is exactly what global energy markets need right now. Energy exports from Vaca Muerta could reach around $3 billion per year by the early 2030s, increasing Argentina's total export by current level of by over 30%. That is not just an energy story, that is a macro story about currency stability and economy opening. Now, what makes the geopolitical moment particularly relevant for this room? We are living through one of the most significant reshuffling of global energy geopolitics in decades. Energy security has moved to the top of every government agenda. Allies matter, reliable suppliers matter, and flexible production that can scale up quickly without decades of infrastructure build-out matters enormously. That is exactly what Argentina and Texas have in common. The Permian Basin has shown the world that what is possible when you combine the right geology, the right capital, and the right regulatory environment. Vaca Muerta has the same potential, and today production there is already growing at 30% year over year. Infrastructure investment decisions worth approximately $50 billion are either underway or reaching FID during this year. That is not a projection, that is capital being committed right now. But there is the honest reality. Activity is also picking up in the Permian and across US shale, driven by stronger prices. That means that service, equipment, and skilled workforce that Vaca Muerta needs are in higher demand everywhere. We need to move quickly and decisively to avoid the bottlenecks that could slow development down. That is what this summit is about. This is not just a conference, it is a working session between two regions that understand each other, that share technical knowledge, that have complementary strengths, and that see a clear mutual interest in getting this right. Texas has the experience, the technology, the capital market access. Argentina has the resource, the momentum, the talent, the know-how, and a government that is genuinely aligned with attractive investment and making that happen. Together, we are combined, we can build something lasting. The opportunities are real. This week is the chance to make that concrete through conversation, partnership, and decision. I hope you make the most of it. I want to close by thanking the ATCC team who makes everything happen. A special thanks to our general manager, Josefina Ibarra, Tamara Becher, Agustín Sicardi, and Juan Aguirre for their passion, their energy, and their commitment. Welcome to the Bilateral Energy Summit, Argentina-Texas 2026. Now I am inviting Diego Zucalesca, Executive President of Prof Argentina, to say a few words.
Bueno, Argentina, un beso. ¿Qué va a hacer? Bueno, ¿cómo andan? I'm going to speak in Spanish. Sorry about that. I'm from Argentina. I like to speak in Spanish because I think I'm doing better. Básicamente lo que quería era transmitir un poco el espíritu de estos tiempos, ¿no? Que sin dudas marca lo que está ocurriendo entre la Argentina y los Estados Unidos. Me ha tocado participar de varios eventos donde este espíritu, este momento histórico que están viviendo ambos países, este momento histórico para el intercambio comercial entre ambos países, hay un espíritu ahí que veo constante, permanente en cada uno de los eventos donde me toca participar, empezando por el Argentina Week allí en marzo en Nueva York, que realmente fue extraordinario en términos de lo que ha ocurrido, en términos de promoción de las oportunidades de inversión que tiene la Argentina, un espíritu en términos también de estrategia comercial y de promoción de las oportunidades que ha permeado en todo el equipo de gobierno a partir de una mirada que tiene el presidente de la Nación, Javier Milei, y que también obviamente tiene Karina Milei, la secretaria general de la presidencia, de poner en un lugar estratégico a PROM argentino, que es justamente debajo de la Secretaría General de la Presidencia. Este espíritu, esta importancia, esta relevancia que tiene hoy por hoy la promoción comercial, bueno, sin duda se ha permeado en todo el equipo de gobierno de CIA y también en el sector privado. Esto lo vemos aquí también. Y de eso nos hemos hecho cargo inmediatamente en PROM Argentina en cada oportunidad que tenemos. Esta sin dudas, lo que ocurre en el marco de OTC, de OTC, para nosotros también lo es muy relevante. Si uno piensa lo que pasó en el 2024, cuando yo todavía no estaba a cargo de PROM Argentina, y donde todavía la agencia no estaba debajo de la órbita de la Secretaría General de la Presidencia, bueno, habíamos desembarcado aquí con un pequeño stand, apenas 36 metros cuadrados, pocas empresas y algo que no representaba lo que empezaba a ocurrir en la Argentina. Bueno, hoy, 2 años después, llegamos con un pabellón nacional con 280 metros cuadrados, cientos de empresarios que acompañan la misión, 27 empresas, pymes, pero también muy grandes, y acá quiero hacer una destacada mención a YPF, nada más y nada menos, ahí lo veo a Horacio hablando con Rolo Figueroa, y que aprovecho, Horacio, para agradecerte públicamente el compromiso que has tenido, no solo con YPF obviamente, sino también con todos los que de alguna manera nos sentimos interpelados por tu manera de llevar adelante la gestión y por lo que significa YPF para la Argentina. Una YPF que, insisto, está siendo puesta entre las líderes del mundo en el sector oil and gas y que este año nos acompaña también en el stand, y para nosotros es realmente muy relevante, muy importante, y por eso quería destacarlo, como también la provincia de Mendoza, como también la provincia de Río Negro, como Añelo. Bueno, en fin, desembarcamos con mucha potencia, como les decía, también con un hito comercial como van a ser las rondas de negocios que van a ocurrir en el stand en el marco de la feria. Sin dudas todo esto marca un poco el espíritu de la época del que hablaba al comienzo, en una nueva Argentina. No podría pensarse en este Promo Argentina sin una Argentina como la que tenemos hoy, ¿no? Una Argentina con disciplina fiscal, con orden macroeconómico que va a terminar con la inflación, con el flagelo de la inflación, que avanza en una agenda de regulaciones pro empresa, que celebra acuerdos estratégicos con Unión Europea y con los Estados Unidos, por ejemplo, que sin duda la hacen mucho más atractiva la inversión, y que además acompaña con una normativa como por ejemplo RIGI, que incentiva las grandes inversiones con beneficios impositivos, aduaneros y cambiarios por 30 años, que es obviamente lo que cualquier inversor pretende. De hecho, el éxito está ya marcado por 13 proyectos que están en ejecución por 27.000 millones de dólares, algo así como el 4% del PBI argentino. En fin, no los quiero aburrir, pero bueno, nos apasiona a todos lo que está ocurriendo en la Argentina, y algo de eso es lo que queremos transmitir con el pabellón nacional. Así que esperemos que ese espíritu también esté presente en el día de hoy y a partir de mañana en la feria. Llegamos para eso, llegamos para acompañar a nuestras empresas, llegamos para decirles que Argentina está lista para recibir inversiones y que el momento es ahora. Así que cuenten con Prom Argentina y con todos sus servicios para hacer realidad esas inversiones. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ariel and Diego, for your words. Well, now we are going to switch gears. We have here a dialogue between Bárbara de Amato, that is the Economic Incentive Oversight Board member of Texas, CEO of Trilogy Capital Corp, and Way One Railroad Commission of Texas Executive Director. So I invite them to the stage, please.
Thank you. Should we have a seat?
No.
Okay. Cover this up a little.
Hola.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I get up here. Hola. Horacio, Rolo, ¿cómo están? Yo soy argentina, pero ahora inglés. So I just want to say thank you. It is a pleasure. Oh, I should probably say it in Spanish as well. Un placer estar acá, segundo año con ATCC. Y bueno, ahora me paso al inglés. Un placer estar acá avanzando, ¿no? El futuro de la energía para Estados Unidos. ¿Se escucha? I'm going to go in English? Okay, fine. The future of energy for Argentina, for the United States, and for the world. I'm Barbara D'Amato. Appointed by Governor Abbott to the State of Texas Economic Board. Our oversight board oversees $2.7 trillion economy here in Texas. And what we do is allocate, these funds going into the various buckets, let's say, from energy to, from energy to ports to technology, et cetera. So all of the funds for the state of Texas go through our board. And at the same time, I also recommend the legislature on policy and trends, as well as advise the audit committee, the legislative audit committee for the state. In addition to that, on the private side, I handle I advance the agenda for our administration, which has to do with national security as well as economic security, right? So I do that with various nations. I host and meet with the various delegations from different countries, governors, ministers, presidential delegations, et cetera, that go through DC. And as you know, DC is the new Wall Street these days. Lots of money coming through DC. So, and then we allocate that throughout the various funds, as well as design strategies to develop these nations that are aligned with American interests and American priorities, but at the same time, shared interests with these nations, right? So that's a little bit what's happening these days. In addition to that, I'm going to be your moderator here today with Wei Wang. Wei is an executive director at the Texas Railroad Commission. Overseeing, we're going to go through his resume as well. Texas Railroad Commission does a lot of things. But I'm going to do a little background on him. So Wei was appointed by unanimous vote of the commissioners in 2018. He first joined the railroad as chief auditor in 2013 and was later appointed chief financial officer. Recently, in 2023, he was appointed by Wyoming Governor Gordon as member of the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, Orphan Wells Task Force. Prior to joining the Railroad Commission, Wei served as advisor to Texas Governor Rick Perry. He's amazing as well. He established the Governor's Compliance Division, responsible for monitoring $1.6 billion in capital. In addition to state government service, Wei worked in the private sector for a national healthcare company and at one of the top 10 CPA firms in America. He holds dual degrees in administrative studies and computer science and is a CPA. Thank you, Wei, for being here.
Thank you for having me. And my Spanish is a little bit rusty.
But he said he likes Malbecs.
So, bienvenido a Texas. Texas, right? ¿Cómo está usted? I'll stop there.
Muy bien, muy bien. So I'm going to talk a little. I'm going to give some context as well. What's happening in the United States, right? In the industry. From my standpoint, as a Wall Street banker, starting as a Wall Street banker, when we talk about attracting capital, which is capital formation, the United States remains the primary engine, right? And when we talk about exploring capital deployment, right, we can say, okay, we're going to deploy capital in mature markets, which is the United States, or we're going to deploy internationally. And when we do it internationally, there's different ways to do that. In the past, sometimes, I will say sometimes, money hasn't been very smart about how it gets allocated internationally. Why? Because Wall Street would have taken a look, perhaps, or companies would have taken a look at it as a diversification strategy, purely globalization for globalization's sake. And what that means is they wanted the red dot on the map. And we all know that's a formula for disaster. Why? Because money goes where money's welcome, right? And money needs risk-adjusted returns. So at the end of the day, you have to methodically look for yield and obviously do things that make sense. So what we saw was a little bit of a return, I would say deglobalization, right? And we started to see that trend, money coming back to mature markets, to regions that provide that risk-adjusted return. But then we saw a new trend happening, which is what I call diplomatic capital, right? which behaves different than Wall Street capital. So diplomatic capital is more focused. It's highly critical, highly strategic diplomatic capital allocated to priorities of shared nations, right? So what we do in the United States, we take a look at nations and say, okay, in negotiation, we call this, what's in it for you, what's in it for me? So we're looking at things, what's in it for us, right? And that's a little bit of what we're seeing today. We're seeing in the energy sector and critical resources, a little bit of what's in it for me, what's in it for you. Let's come together. Let's do these partnerships. So all of a sudden, DC has become the new Wall Street, right? And we see trillions and billions of dollars flowing through DC and through the various states as well. But a lot of that's how it gets redeployed internationally, right? So one of the things we talked about as well was this trend of, that I think in my generation hasn't been so common, which is money from the Americas being committed into the Americas as well. We saw that from the Shield of the Americas, right? Our administration was sort of repositioned, repurposed priorities from what would have been typically in the United States a Northern Hemisphere priority to a Western Hemisphere priority, which is, again, something wonderful, and I think for us to experience, right? We're seeing that emergence of a Western Hemisphere focus, and in particular, we're paying very good attention at South America, right? So what do we have? We have on the north the strongest, oil and gas, the largest producing country, right, in oil and gas, which is the United States, and in the south, one of the most attractive shale plays, globally. So with that said, and in addition to resources, by the way, also there is the combination of talent and jobs, knowledge transfer and capital investment that defines not just the future of energy, but also the technologies of tomorrow, right? So that's, I think, what we're seeing today, and this is a marvelous time, and the momentum is just very strong for every one of us to pay, good attention, because it isn't just about belonging to the Americas, right? It isn't a sentiment. This is truly a strategic play that the time to move is now, for sure. So. Okay. And as your moderator today, we're going to be asking Wei some questions relating to the Texas model, right? So, Wei, do you want to start at the 50,000-foot level, or do you want to work our way down, perhaps?
I'll follow you.
All right, let's do it. So, Shield of the Americas. This is a tough question. How critical is energy protection today from our adversaries? This is America, right? We again, what's driving the Shield of the Americas, what's driving this strategic geopolitical positioning has to do with energy protection and energy resilience, right?
Yeah, I'll just tell you a story. When Texas, or United States, was going through the shale revolution about 15 years ago, there was a movie funded by OPEC countries. I'm not going to say which country. And it was talking about a landman going around Texas, securing land, leases, and it caused a lot of concern for landowners. So it's not portrayed correctly, but, people don't want to see the competition. Because in the last 15 years, Texas production has gone up to over 6 million barrels per day, and natural gas is 32 billion BCF per day. So a lot of competition, and one of our commissioners years ago visited one of the countries in the Middle East, and that's when President Donald Trump moved our embassy to another city. And he asked an ambassador, the energy security in Texas, what's happening in Texas, did that make a difference? And the ambassador's words was, it made all the difference. So energy security is very important to United States and to our friends and allies. And I remember 2018, I went to one of the European countries, and they were not buying American gas because the transportation cost was too high. But today, majority of the natural gas we produce here gets exported. So from pure economic perspective, it may not make sense. But going back to what you're saying, from national security, energy security, you want to make sure when you turn on the stove, there's gas there. When you turn on the switch, there's electricity there.
Absolutely. And real quick, these days, OPEC is a little bit on the news. So what are your thoughts? We sometimes talk about an OPEC 2.0, right? Can that model work in the Americas?
Well, that model actually started in Texas in the 30s of the 20th century, because we were producing too much in Texas, and the Royal Commission came out with a proration schedule that kind of tells you how much oil a well can produce. And then after the 70s, the OPEC country took that model, and I would recommend one book. Alan Greenspan wrote a book, Age of Turbulence. So there's a chapter in there about proration, OPEC, and Royal Commission. So the model worked in the United States, because the market destruction was real in the 30s and 40s, and the commission had to curtail production. And during COVID, the commission had a 2-day conference. The commissioner heard testimony from a lot of companies, and some are for proration, some are not. And we made a decision not to curtail our supply, because demand is going to be there. I think EIA is estimating 1.5 million barrels per day for 2026, and OPEC is estimating 1.6 million barrels per day. And Texas is producing 6.6, and I think Argentina is 900,000 barrels per day. So we're small, relatively small, in comparison to in terms of the global demand. So the demand there, oil and gas is not going away for the next 30, 40 years. And so it would work. It's actually started here. And so that will be my answer.
Thank you. Wonderful. So now let's talk about the Texas model. Texas remains the global standard in oil and gas production, but the sector extends beyond production, right? It is power, it's pipelines, logistics, critical resources, land management, water management, environmental stewarding, waste management to an extent, technology, habitat restoration. I mean, all of this is what gets overseen and managed by the Railroad Commission. And in addition to that, all this is powered by small and medium-sized and large-sized operators and producers and research and development, et cetera, and suppliers. So what are some of the most important lessons, would you say, on efficiency, execution, and competitiveness you can share with the audience from the Railroad Commission?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is consistency. And look, the company are investing in this region because they know what they're getting themselves into. They know how long it's going to take them to get their CapEx back, their ROI. So regulatory framework has to be stable and predictable. Every time we change our regulation, we have stakeholder meetings and take about a year or two. We have those conversations with the industry, both super majors, independents, and other stakeholders. And we routinely have those meetings and go over the language of the regulation. To give you one example, Chairman Jim Wright just changed Chapter 4, our environmental regulation, and that regulation has not been changed in 40 years. And it took to him 2 years to have multiple conversations with multiple stakeholders to get to where we are today. So having a stable regulatory environment is very important to investors, because again, they need to know how long it's going to take them, and they need to know the rule book is not going to change in the middle, because they're investing millions and millions of dollars. They need to know the regulator is not going to change the rule on them in the middle of the game.
Fantastic. Speaking of Jim Wright, we were sitting right here last year, if y'all remember, And we talked about a cross-border energy ecosystem between Texas and Argentina and other countries. That's a little bit, so I talked earlier about money attracted to the U.S., money going international, and within that, it can stay in the U.S. or go international, and it can follow different strategies. But there's a third strategy we didn't talk about, which is triangulating opportunities. Money doesn't have to go one way, right? It doesn't have to be into Argentina, into a single, asset. It may very well be into the U.S. for Argentina, coming from Saudi Arabia, et cetera. So triangulating these ecosystems of both capital, technology, talent, et cetera, right? Creating that ecosystem is the future of energy, the way we see it. So what are your thoughts there? What is that ecosystem actually, what would it look like?
The ecosystem is very important because you have to have an infrastructure and the workforce to be able to develop the resources. So in Texas, we don't have a permitting process for a pipeline. So to take your product to market, we have eminent domain. The pipeline it's like highway. So they don't have to tell the commission or they don't have to get a permit from me. And they only have to register with me and tell me where they're building the pipeline. So I'm going there, sending my inspectors to make sure they're using the correct pipe, and then they're up to safety standards. But it doesn't take years to build a pipeline. So you can develop the resources and build a pipeline, take to the Port Houston or Port Corpus Christi, and export it. So efficiency and consistency, that would be my advice. When I started at the commission about 13 years ago, our drilling permit system, during the morning, my staff would go into the system and use it, and then we had to log out in the afternoon to allow industry to come in and log it. Today, it takes 2 days to get a drilling permit from Texas. If you have everything, all the documents in place, it takes 2 days. So it's a race to the market, right? So Texas is competing with New Mexico and other states. That's fine. We produce 42 to 45% of the production, and in other states, it may take 2 years. And also in other states, they have regulation. Every city can pass city ordinance. In Texas, HB 40 says the Rural Commission has statewide jurisdiction. So all the regulation is controlled by the commission. So the city cannot have rules on some barrier or build cast iron fences or production facility and plant flowers, native flowers. I've been to some states. I was like, no, that's too much. So efficiency, get your IT system, make it easy for the investor to come to your state. So Neuquén is very similar to Texas, right? Bagamueta is very similar to Permian Basin. And what you have there, the advantage is it costs $35 to $45 break-even point. In the United States, $67. So one thing I don't understand is why it costs $9 million to $13 million to drill a well in Neuquén. But in Texas, Eagle Ford is $6 million. So the drilling cost is significantly higher, but the break-even cost is lower. So that's the advantage of Argentina over Texas. So we look at Argentina as a major competitor in the future.
No doubt. I look at them as partners. And now we're going to ask the $1 million question. If you were hired by Governor Figueroa tomorrow to build a world-class ecosystem for Argentina to replicate the Texas model, what would be your first priority on the job? How long? ¿Cuánto le damos? 30 días, no sé.
2 days.
60 días, ¿cuánto le damos? A ver, in 30 days, what would be your priority?
Well, actually, 2 priorities. Governor, we need to make the Red Stag and Malbec free for everybody.
¿Quiere el Malbec que sea gratis para todos?
And secondly, hair Barbara,
Sí, por favor.
So, again,
Emplearme a mí.
I will go back to consistency and efficiency. So the regulations in Texas, the mineral right owners own the mineral. In Argentina, the state owns the mineral.
El
But the
Estado es dueño de
policy-
los minerales. Okay.
Yeah, the
La
state. When I
provincia,
say the
claro, la
state,
provincia es
the
dueño
prov-
de la tierra y de los derechos a los minerales. Subsuelo. El subsuelo, got it. Translation.
Yeah, and then the federal government sets the policy, right? The federal government. So there's a disconnect there. In Texas, the Rural Commission has a policy for production, for transportation, for exploration, right? But one advantage Argentina has, or Neil Ken has, is y'all own the mineral. The operator don't have to sign a lease agreement with 50,000 people,
Right.
right? They sign the
En
agreement.
Estados Unidos sí hay que firmar con todos los terratenientes, digamos. Yeah.
So make it predictable and stable, and tell the operators or investor what they're getting themselves into. Help them to make sense of their investment so they know their ROI and how long they're going to recover their CapEx. Yeah.
Sí. Ya dijo que los derechos tienen que estar en los estados, ¿eh? En las provincias. So, what happens if you have to regulate pipeline that goes through 3 different states? Because
You know-
we have access to the sea and
I'll tell you
Okay.
what they do in Texas. So the Rural Commission,
other states.
yeah. hmm So we regulate within Texas. So what people do is the pipeline company will build their pipeline maybe 1 mile, 2 miles to the state border, or they could even build up to the the Mexico border, and then they'll build it. That's regulated by the commission. The last mile is regulated by the federal government. So we set the standards and we adopt federal standards, and we don't adopt anything more than that. So we work with Louisiana, New Mexico, and then it wouldn't work in Argentina. Mhm.
Invitamos a Horacio.
I come to United States here and I want to make an oil pipe from Texas to Oklahoma. And let's say that let's go to Louisiana and go back. How you regulate there when there is 2 states? No, 1 mile, no 1 mile. I asked the question, okay? Let's say they want to from one state to another state and to the sea.
Yeah, that's
How you
that's
can
federal
regulate?
government. That's
Why
FERC
federal
and
government? Because there are 2.
yeah, there are
So-
two. It's interstate commerce.
So,
So I don't have
so it is-
jurisdiction in
it is-
Louisiana.
It's different than Argentina. Because in Argentina, the states decide by themselves.
How does or get to the border?
How do Oklahoma get to the border?
Yeah.
So they come across Texas, and then the pipeline within Texas go to Mexico. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, right, the success of Texas, no matter what, I think is the pro-business approach of the state. We have a phenomenal pro-business governor, Governor Abbott, and we have, we work very closely with our agencies and the commissions, with the General Land Office, Don Buckingham with Jim Wright from the Railroad Commission, and together between the lands and the mineral rights and it's all policy and legislation, right, driven. But that's how we're seeing, growth happen over and over and over. It's sort of a compounding effect. And in addition to that, our governor is elected for 4 terms, 4 years.
Longest serving.
Right, exactly. So it's a very long term in the position, right? So you could be 16 years in the position. I don't know if that's the case with governors in Argentina. So, but anyway, so that's it for today. That's thank you for the questions. Appreciate the time. Thank you, Wade.
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Horacio, thank you. Governor.
Okay, let's continue with the program. And now, first of all, thank you very much. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Horacio, also for bringing additional questions. That is a true conversation, okay? Now is your time. So we are going to have here the most passionate person about the Argentine energy industry, Horacio Marín. Horacio, thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon. I'm going to talk in Spanish because it's my native language, okay? So there is translation, they told me, okay? I have to work quickly because I have half an hour, so I will be very quickly, okay? Okay, now Spanish. Voy rápido, me dijeron tengo media hora, no me voy a tratar de no pasarme. Y voy a hablar de tres cosas. Bueno, estos saben que yo no represento YPF, hablo porque hablo, ¿de acuerdo? Pero no me pueden hacer juicio ni a mí, ni a YPF, ni a mi vieja, ni a mi hija, ni a nadie, ¿de acuerdo? Bueno, yo voy a hablar de... No lo pueden hacer, y te lo estoy diciendo, así que lo estoy diciendo que es las condiciones que empiezo a hablar. Entonces soy yo que pongo las condiciones, no vos. Voy a hablar de tres cosas rápido. Argentina 2030, YPF 4x4, pero no voy a... Solamente me pidieron que hable de efficiency peak, porque acá hay mucha gente. ¿Cuántas personas levanten la mano americanos que quieren invertir en Argentina en servicios? Ok, por eso voy a hablar un poco de Argentina y muy poco de YPF, solamente de la parte de eficiencias en YPF, pero no los voy a aburrir con el programa de YPF. Y después, para que sepan a dónde va YPF, multipliquen por 2 y es la Argentina. ¿Ok? Argentina 2030. Este es el objetivo de YPF. Pero acá quiero comentar algo. Yo creo que en Argentina, en energía, se generó un círculo virtuoso. Círculos virtuosos significan gobiernos nacionales, provinciales, seguramente lo que tiene que ver municipales, empresas, sindicatos, todos alineados a un objetivo que es crecer. Cuando no hay círculos virtuosos, no se cambian los países. Y yo pienso personalmente que en la industria energética argentina lo estamos en un círculo virtuoso. ¿Qué significa eso? Que no hay que especular, hay que invertir para generar riqueza. La riqueza lo generan los privados. Entonces, una vez que están las condiciones, hay que invertir, no especular, no hay que esperar. Eso es lo que ha pasado en nuestra industria. Este es el objetivo de YPF. El objetivo de YPF es que Argentina exporte más de 30.000 millones de dólares a partir del 2030. Y es un objetivo de industria, no es un objetivo solamente de la compañía. Esto no se logra con YPF solo. ¿Es necesario YPF? Sí, es condición necesaria, pero no es condición suficiente. Se necesita toda la industria y por eso estamos trabajando con toda la industria. ¿Por qué? Los últimos 20 años la Argentina estaba flat. Para poder ganar market share había que cagar a YPF. Me olvidé de pasar porque de ahora en más me ponen un disclaimer que dice que mis presentaciones no son aptas para menores de 18 años por los... Ya lo inauguramos. Hoy no lo inauguré porque pensé que no iba a decir malas palabras, pero voy a decir malas palabras. Bueno, les expliqué eso porque les voy a explicar muy rápido Argentina. ¿Qué es lo que estamos viendo? Acá en la izquierda de ustedes ven cómo van a ir las exportaciones. No me meto en temas económicos, cuál es la la balanza comercial para no entrar en temas más complejos. Fíjense, 30.000 era al principio y nosotros estamos teniendo hoy 45, el número es 48 y si se da el otro LNG seguramente estamos en los 49, 50.000 millones a partir del 2031, 2032. Lo único que quiero enfatizar acá es que estamos duplicando la producción total de Argentina. Vamos a ir a 1,5 millones de barriles. Raista ya dice 1.800.000. Primero me decía que estaba equivocado, ahora dice que dice más que nosotros, lo cual me pone muy contento. Significa que toda la industria estamos respondiendo muy bien a los desafíos. Fíjense cómo la industria de oil and gas va a ser el cebador a la macroeconomía argentina. Y va a dar la posibilidad para que después vengan la minería, el litio y otras inversiones de muy largo plazo. Miren en el otro gráfico la comparativa entre la energía y el campo. El campo es la única turbina que tenía la industria argentina y un avión con una turbina no anda. Cuando no hay, ¡pum!, se caía. Entonces no estaba. Nosotros le estamos generando la segunda turbina. Entonces va a ser un avión seguro. Y eso se lo afané a él, que fue el primero que lo escuché cuando era ministro de Energía, pero las cosas que también se toman, ¿de acuerdo? Lo que no hay que hacer plagio en la vida, pero hay que decirlo. Está bien, así que lo tomamos. Ahora, yo voy a simplificar en 3 cosas. ¿Por qué se da eso? Y estamos ya en el círculo virtuoso. El primero es el gobierno nacional. A la derecha pueden ver cómo baja el riesgo país, cómo baja la inflación, que estaba yendo a hiperinflación, cómo bajó. ¿Y qué pasó? Se generó una estabilidad macroeconómica muy importante. Hay un gran proceso de desregulación muy fuerte. Y no es solamente el gobierno nacional, sino tiene las provincias, entonces tenemos que desregular. Y después hay un régimen para inversiones que se llama RIGI. Sin RIGI no había LNG, sin RIGI no hay inversión. No se podía hacer rápidamente el círculo virtuoso, no de YPF, de toda la industria. YPF sí decidió ir al círculo virtuoso del primer día. Porque si no soy un pelotudo, si me dicen venía a generar valor, le voy a decir, estamos de acuerdo, ¿no? Si no, no agarro, ¿de acuerdo? Hay que salir rápido, hay que lograr ir para arriba. Esta es la clave. El RIGI, es más, hoy que está de moda después de lo que está pasando en el Medio Oriente, que se habla de que los países ya no hablan de precios sino de seguridad. Bueno, a nosotros primero en el RIGI era más importante la seguridad jurídica, cambiaria, tributaria, que las mejoras económicas que da el RIGI, que son muy importantes. Y esto fue lo que logró que nosotros podamos ir muy rápido hacia un LNG, muy importante para la Argentina, que es, no voy a hablar hoy, ¿de acuerdo? Porque me dijeron, habla menos y de esto. Lo primero es esto, la transformación macroeconómica. Segundo, vaca muerta. ¿Hay agua? Tomar del pico, no importa. No. Sí, que no se puede tomar del pico. ¿Y dónde lo dejo?
Dame, por eso.
Es lo mismo.
Ahí está.
Es lo mismo, sí es lo mismo. Nadie tomó de una botella. Levante la mano quien no tomó una botella en su vida. Segundo es vaca muerta. Y esto es clave. O sea, tenés que tener las 3 cosas que van a ver. La macroeconomía, la calidad de vaca muerta. Bueno, ¿por qué era condición necesaria YPF? Rápido. Ese mapa, lo ven celestito y azul, es donde YPF tiene shares. Está básicamente en toda vaca muerta y puede ver que está alrededor del 50%. Si YPF no desarrolla vaca muerta, no se desarrolla vaca muerta. Si los demás no desarrollan, tampoco hay vaca muerta. Al medio ven las EUR, que son las acumuladas totales de los pozos del primer día hasta que se abandonan, hecho por Rystad. Y del otro lado, Wood Mackenzie, así nos dicen que para ser más, ¿cómo se llama?, equilibrado. Al medio dice parte técnica. La roca de vaca muerta es mejor que cualquiera de las rocas petroleras de Estados Unidos, de shale, y también en gas. Solo Haynesville que es igual. Haynesville profundo es igual a vaca muerta, tiene los mismos recursos, es muy parecido. lo que tiene muchísimo más Estados Unidos es muchísimo más recursos que Vaca Muerta. Vaca Muerta tiene mucho menos recursos que Estados Unidos, pero es mucho más no rentable, sino tiene, desde el punto de vista técnico, mucho mejor. Pero cuando vamos a la rentabilidad, que son los siguientes gráficos, donde se ve el break-even en el eje de las X y la productividad en el eje de la Y, lo que tienen que buscar ustedes, arriba Vaca Muerta, arriba Vaca Muerta. ¿Y dónde están? A la izquierda. Si está a la izquierda significa que los break-even de Argentina son similares a los de Estados Unidos. Entonces se da la condición. Económicamente somos comparables a Estados Unidos, así que todo lo que son las compañías de servicios lo necesitamos, porque si no, no bajamos los costos. ¿De acuerdo? Pues si no, hay muy poca competencia. Cuando hay poca competencia, hay mayores costos unitarios. Y nosotros vinimos a romper los zoológicos, porque si no se rompen los zoológicos, los costos son altos. Entonces después tenemos pozos más caros, rentabilidades menores. Y la tercera es la inversión. Acá podría estar mucho tiempo, pero va a ser corto. En la industria estamos trabajando colaborativamente y hay a la derecha de su imagen hay montones de proyectos que ya hicimos juntos. El oleoducto de Vemos, los Argentina, los LNG y el Instituto Vaca Muerta, que es de educación, que supongo que hablarás, ¿no? Así que no voy a hablar nada. Y fíjense de lo que es las inversiones, y esto va para todos los americanos, pero los argentinos ya lo sabemos, que quieren ir a Argentina, por favor vengan. Fíjense, la inversión en todo, asumiendo el LNG, va a ser del 25 al 31, 130.000 millones de dólares. Si uno divide promedio, les aseguro que da una inversión que es igual o mayor a la super major todo el mundo. Por lo tanto, Neuquén, los próximos 5 años, es el lugar más, como les dice usted decir en Estados Unidos, más hot de inversiones que puede ocurrir. No hay ninguna parte en el mundo que va a tener esta inversión. Así que los esperamos. Bueno, esta es la primera parte que quería mostrar. YPF 4x4. Muy corto. Para llegar a esos 30.000 tiene que haber un camino. Entonces en YPF decidimos definir 4x4. Que la compañía tenga un valor a los 4 años 4 veces más de lo que tenía cuando iniciamos. Y creo que lo vamos a superar. Y en el 31, cuando me vaya, yo creo que vamos a multiplicar por otro orden de magnitud. Yo creo que vamos a dejar 10 veces de lo que era YPF. Ahora, el camino lo tenemos que tener claro en YPF. Todos tenemos que ir el lunes. Y si tu jefe no te da bola, saber qué tenés que hacer. Y esa es la clave, que haya pasión. Que la gente todos los días cuando vaya, sepa lo que tenemos que hacer. Lo que llamamos los miles de soñadores son los que logran los resultados extraordinarios. La diferencia en una compañía con resultados extraordinarios y en una compañía de resultados ordinarios es solamente la pasión. No es otra cosa. Todos sabemos trabajar. Todos sabemos hacer las cosas. La diferencia es el que da la extramilla. Hoy en YPF se da la extramilla. Y acá está la explicación. Los 1 y 4 extraemos desarrollo Vaca Muerta. ¿De acuerdo? El segundo es el manejo activo de portafolio. Nos fuimos donde perdemos valor, donde perdíamos plata, compramos mejor y generamos un ecosistema de los cuales estoy muy contento, que hay muchos, que hoy tienen las áreas de YPF y ya las manejan mejor que YPF. ¿Pero por qué? Porque YPF es una compañía grande, es una compañía que factura 20.000 millones de dólares. No puede estar en áreas pequeñas. No puede estar. No puede estar en áreas donde el costo, el lifting cost, está entre 25 y 82, cuando tenemos Vaca Muerta, más de 220.000 millones de dólares de inversiones en pozos, con un lifting cost entre 3 y 4. Entonces nos teníamos que concentrar en Vaca Muerta, y eso es lo que hicimos. Y el tercero es la locura, hay que ser loco para lograr resultados, y todos estamos locos, que es las eficiencias upstream dumping. Yo me voy a concentrar ahí para mostrarles algunas cosas, para que vean los que vienen a invertir en qué país se encuentran. ¿De acuerdo? Y les voy a ir contando en esa parte, sobre todo de upstream. ¿De acuerdo? Ahora creo, si recuerdo bien la presentación, viene un video. El video es un video de Real Time Intelligence Centers. Nosotros cambiamos forma de trabajar. No se trabaja más en forma de monitor. Todos vemos, usando tecnología, inteligencia artificial, millones de datos. Les digo rápido, pues no va a estar acá. En pozos manejamos, van a ver, desde Buenos Aires, cada 3 personas manejan 4 redes de perforación y recibimos 35 millones de datos por día. Lo mismo pasa con las fracturas. No hay más van en el lugar. Los van para definir están en Buenos Aires y se define desde ahí. Y lo más impresionante es la operación. En la operación recibimos la friolera de 1.500 millones, creo que es 1.500 millones de datos por día. Y también tenemos real time. Bueno, ahora van a ver y hay un, por una cuestión de lógica, no voy a decir, porque uno como yo que come hamburguesas, que va a preguntar ahí y dice, está mal hecho el video, y lo quiero para que se den cuenta. El flaco le pregunta a la inteligencia artificial si está todo bien. Hicimos un video incorrecto, pues para mostrar que está todo bien. No siempre está todo bien. Entonces le dice, sí, está todo bien, bueno, avísame, y nadie va a entender un carajo. No es así. Dividimos una refinería en 4, se los cuento ahora, para que lo vean ahí, y hay 4 agentes de inteligencia artificial y uno que concentra. Y si vos le preguntás a esa refinería, que es en Neuquén, ahí hicimos el piloto y ahora lo estamos extendiendo. Si le preguntás, te dice, lee todos los manuales, lee todas las cosas, lee todos los datos atmosféricos, toda la presión atmosférica, todo, y te dice lo que tenés que hacer. Te dice, no, flaco, esto trae 3 grados menos, cambia esta válvula y en media hora vas a ganar, YPF va a ganar 4.802,34. Eso es lo que yo lo he visto. Y no está ese ejemplo. Está un efecto que dice, está todo bien. No está todo bien. Es muy difícil tener una refinería las 24 horas en el punto óptimo. ¿De acuerdo? Lo van a ver, pero imagínense las cosas que se pueden hacer. No se escucha. No se escucha. No, pará. No se escucha y estamos al horno. Volvé y hacelo escuchar. Poné sonido, porque aparte después tengo el mejor video de todos. Acá hago descuento, es un problema tuyo, es técnico. Decime cuándo lo paso. Ahora se pone nervioso ya. Te aviso que en el real time, si tardan 2 minutos, perdemos un pozo. Así que imagínate la cantidad de pozos que estás perdiendo.
At YPF, we are leaders. We are benchmarks. We set the course with technology, and we do so with efficiency and professionalism, generating value for our company and for Argentina. This is an Arctic, an operations center with real-time data for making decisions that translate into concrete action. From here, we own the live operation and process millions of data points to anticipate and act intelligently. The center operates continuously, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We have inaugurated 9 Arctics across the country, all connected to the same network. From each center, we go directly to the operation it controls. With backup connectivity and field devices, we monitor remote operations and act with precision in real time.
¿Es óptima la temperatura de la T302 para la actual producción de metanol?
La temperatura del equipo T es óptima para la producción actual.
Avísame cuando este valor salga de la tolerancia.
What's coming next consolidates this path, the path of continuing to take YPF to the top.
No voy a pasar por acá. Estos son todas las transformaciones tecnológicas que hicimos en un año. Y no voy a hacer mucha propaganda, pero yo estoy fascinado con una que es único en el mundo. Nosotros vemos en real time todos los surtidores, todos los pump de cada una de las 1.750 estaciones de servicio. Hasta vemos la NAP, La siesta, y ahí hay periodistas, no saben cuál es la provincia que más duerme en Argentina la siesta. Yo la sé, pero no me lo va a sacar nadie. No sé. Bueno, vamos a eficiencias. Eficiencias. En perforación, les quiero contar a los que van a venir. Nosotros tenemos todo hecho en estándar. Tenemos 56 tareas que seguimos los tiempos y la gente en real time va viendo si cumple o no los tiempos y de esa forma vamos mejorando continuamente, una mejora continua. Cada 3 meses cambiamos los estándares en forma automática según el BES 40. ¿De acuerdo? En 2 años aumentamos la perforación 66%. Bajamos 15% los costos y acá hay montones de cosas que hemos hecho. 40 pozos ya perforamos en forma autónoma. Son 3.000 metros de profundidad, 3.000 metros horizontales y lo hacemos desde la computadora de Buenos Aires, esos 3 flaquitos, y en el equipo solamente enroscan las barras. Todo lo demás lo hace en forma automática. Hicimos 40 pozos, creo que somos muy pocas empresas pueden decir que han hecho esto. Tenemos los récords que quieran, no importa, el récord no es importante para decir soy el mejor, el récord es muy importante para la mejora continua, para que la gente vea que se puede hacer, ¿de acuerdo? Mi objetivo, que parece una locura, aunque mejoramos 66% y ya estamos en 1/3 de los tiempos cuando se empezó Vaca Muerta, mi objetivo personal es que nos vayamos perforando a la mitad del tiempo que estamos hoy. Va a ser bien fuerte, pero hay que hacerlo. Bueno, en completación, mejoramos, fíjense, 61% la cantidad de tiempo de bombeo. Hoy estamos haciendo prácticamente simulfrac en casi todo, cuando se puede, porque a veces los pozos están con diferentes profundidades y ahí no se puede hacer simulfrac. Pero cuando estamos haciendo simulfrac y ya estamos en más de 20 horas de promedio de bombeo. Yo sé que acá en Estados Unidos, alguien, díganme si no es cierto, la última vez que leí y vi, están en 22 horas. Nosotros vamos a llegar a las 24 horas rápidamente. Es decir, que los equipos están continuamente bombeando. La máquina crítica es el bombeador. Tienes que estar continuamente bombeando. Ya estamos en 22 horas. Bajamos los costos y acá no están los costos que ya hemos bajado con las compañías de servicio, con licitaciones transparentes y complejas, porque estamos peleando para que Argentina tenga los costos que realmente tiene que tener la industria. Y acá también hemos hecho la primera fractura autónoma de Halliburton en el mundo. Es decir, que de Buenos Aires a los bombeadores le decimos cuánto tiene que bombar, cuándo para, cuál sube, cuál viene, cuánta arena, vamos cambiando. Ya hicimos 3.000. Fuimos los primeros en implementar biofuel y está trayendo Halliburton el primer equipo eléctrico en la República Argentina a partir de octubre. Es el primer equipo que se va a utilizar fuera de los Estados Unidos como eléctrico en el mundo. Bueno, y ahí hemos tenido un récord de 110 horas continuamente bombeando. Eso significa que se puede hacer. Lo importante, como digo, los récords para poner objetivos muy altos que se pueden lograr. Al principio es una felicitación, luego pasa a ser un continuo y ahí está hecho el trabajo. Acá voy rápido, pero en operaciones, bueno, tenemos un real time en Neuquén que es flashable, realmente es impresionante. Y ya tenemos drones, tenemos la cantidad, a ver, me lo sacaron los datos, bueno, mejor, podría haber dicho cualquier boludez, pero son alrededor, el número que yo tengo en la cabeza son 1.340 millones de datos por día que recibimos. Y ahora lo que estamos haciendo es una gran transformación y tomando gente de Data Analytics, si tienen hermanos, tíos, díganmelo, que vienen y entran sin siquiera ser evaluados en YPF, porque tenemos tantos datos que el problema es que todos somos, como yo, dinosaurios. Tenés millones de datos y no los sabés sacar. Entonces, estamos haciendo esa transformación. YPF 2030. Rápido. ¿Qué son estos gráficos? Vamos a ver otro. Este es el total de las áreas, pero no propio de YPF. En azul, esto no es más de lo que presentamos en New York el año pasado y es lo que vamos a actualizar en abril del año que viene en la Bolsa de Nueva York. Así que estos son datos oficiales. Fíjense, lo que es áreas es lo que dijimos. Lo que es azul es lo que estamos entregando. YPF está entregando lo que dijo. Y vamos muy rápido. Hay áreas que le agarramos. Hay un área que es emblemática. Estaba en 2.000 barriles y en 18 meses la pusimos en 55.000 barriles. De 2 a 55. Eso es lo que es YPF hoy. Es todo rápido, todo tratamos de hacerlo bien, con mucha excelencia y mucha productividad. Y esa es otra de las razones por las cuales tenemos que salir de los campos maduros. Tenemos 16.500 pozos para perforar, locaciones, auditadas por The Golden McNaughton. Eso significa más de 220.000 millones de dólares. Y tenemos que hacer 2.800 pozos en 5 años. La velocidad a la que vamos a ir es 3X de la que estamos acostumbrados como operador y en realidad en 2X propio. YPF va a ser una compañía extremadamente rentable. Perdón. Y esto es propio. Acá está en verde, en la diferencia con los demás, es lo que está dando el neto de Vaca Muerta respecto a lo que dijimos. Fíjense que vamos correctamente. Estamos cumpliendo los programas a rajatabla. Y tenemos que hacer como si fuesen propios 10.300 pozos. Es decir, que nosotros tenemos como el 60% de los pozos son propios para llevarlo a un tema, a una jerga. ¿Y qué vamos a dejar? Una compañía, esos top 10 shale player worldwide, pero esto es teniendo en cuenta que todas las de acá de Estados Unidos se mantienen en pico. Yo creo que vamos a estar mejor que eso. Vamos a estar bien. Es la primera, yo no encontré todavía, compañía integrada no convencional del mundo. No hay ninguna que es integrada full con no convencional. Vamos a ser el primer exportador de lo que se le ocurra en la Argentina. Va a ser una empresa world class, ya lo es. En downstream, cuando yo ingresé, La Plata tenía margen cero. Hoy tenemos $22 por barril. Y en 100 años es la primera vez que YPF gana el premio a la mejor refinería de Latinoamérica. Y el año pasado en el World Petroleum Congress nos dieron a YPF la mejor compañía del continente americano, incluido Estados Unidos y Canadá. Nos dieron el premio a la mejor compañía 2025. Altamente tecnológica. Las encuestas hoy dicen que la gente también, somos altamente tecnológicos, como lo vieron, pero la gente en Argentina dice que es la compañía de más tecnología en la República Argentina, y es cierto, porque tengo que hablar mucho, sino para mostrarles montones de cosas. Y vamos a generar mucho cash flow, vamos a empezar a pagar dividendos en el 2028. Elite de recursos humanos tenemos, pero acá queremos enfatizar que no solamente Instituto Vaca Muerta, que es para trabajadores de Boca del Pozo, trabajadores del sindicato que estamos capacitando, sino que nosotros empezamos a enviar a partir de este año 15 másters a los Estados Unidos. No a Europa, para que no vayan a boludear, para que vengan a Estados Unidos a estudiar. ¿Ok? Y estamos concentrados en el offshore. Tenemos un acuerdo con Eni para ver si a fin de año decidimos si perforamos en Uruguay. Yo creo que va a ser un gran... Yo creo que se va a encontrar. Metieron un tiro en el pie. Se encuentra a todos lados menos en Argentina. Se encontró en Namibia. Era lo mismo. Así que en el Atlántico se está manejando mucho eso. Y ahora viene un video y termino. Pero antes... Con el video termino, no digo más nada, pero antes les quiero decir que en YPF eliminamos la palabra éxito y fracaso. En YPF no existe más la palabra. El que dice éxito o fracaso pierde el bono. En YPF hablamos de superación. Hay que poner niveles muy altos y no pasa nada si uno no logra el objetivo que se interpuso con 8 años de anticipación. Lo importante, y esto por eso lo voy a decir, porque al final voy a decir algo, lo importante es que cuando uno llega a ese valor es mejor que el que estaba. A mí no me interesa si es 30.000, 50.000, 20.000 o 70.000. Lo que sí estoy seguro que en el 2031 Argentina y la industria va a estar en una mejor posición. Eso me lo enseñó mi abuela, que era una señora muy pobre de Italia, y eso me lo enseñó lo que es la superación. Voy a decir las últimas palabras y después pongo el video, que es el video que representa hoy a YPF. Respiro YPF, transpiro YPF, pienso YPF, amo YPF.
If I tell you that everyone arrives on time and does what they have to do, you'd say it's a German company. If I tell you it's at the forefront of technology, you'd say it's a Korean company. If I tell you it's the one that sells the most coffee in the country, you'd say it's a Colombian company. If I tell you it runs like clockwork, you'd say it's a Swiss company. If I tell you it exports hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil to the world, you'd say it's a Saudi company. If I tell you it plans to grow fourfold in 4 years, you'd say it's a Japanese company. If I tell you it works to export gas to the world, you'd say it's a Qatari company. If I tell you it reaches every corner, you'd say it's a Chinese company. If I tell you it provides jobs to thousands of people, you'd say it's an Indian company. If I tell you it's a company that inspires national pride, you'd say it's an American company. If I tell you it's a company that today can do all of this and also has a heart like no other, you'd say it's YPF, the company from Argentina.
Muchas gracias y nos vamos a matar para lograr los objetivos.
Gracias. Well, Horacio, thank you very much. A wonderful presentation, a lot of passion. And now I want to say thanks to some bronze sponsors: Allison, AT Inversiones, Capex, DDC Software, Rombit, Ventia Energy, Del Sur, Bonchil, Oliden Technology, Pickering Energy Partner, Solar Urbano Inversiones, Transeparations, Business ASPA, Derrick, Clusteyer, Pomtear, Inteligencia Artificial, Hosman, Magna, Inisoft, Qubit, KES Latam Business, Agar Corporation, Artec Ingeniería, LS Group, Oil Solutions, T-Market, ARX Stampers. Thank you very much for supporting us in this event. Yeah. So next is something amazing, because it's something that we worked so hard in the chamber to help that happen. And we have a wonderful partnership between a great Argentina company and a great US company, Pan American and Continental. So before going there, I will share a video of Pan American Energy.
We are Pan American Energy, a leading global energy company. We are an organization of more than 21,000 men and women who every day bring sustainable and affordable energy to the global markets. Over the last 15 years, we've invested on average over $1.5 billion every year. We produce around 250,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day. We are Latin America's largest private producer of oil, natural gas, fuels, and renewable energy. We are present in Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, Brazil, Uruguay, and Paraguay. We produce top quality fuels in the most modern refinery in South America. We operate the most modern network of service stations, providing first-class customer service. In 2024, we signed an agreement with Golar LNG for the 20-year deployment of a floating LNG vessel in Argentina, which will produce liquefied natural gas, LNG, for the export markets. We invest. We innovate. grow. We are Pan American Energy. Energy for the world.
Well, now we are going to have an interview. Marcelo Joffre, Vice President of Supply Chain and Security in Pan American Energy, will interview Ross Stewart, U.S. Vice President, Land and Business Development, Continental Resources.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you very much, Horacio, for letting me do in this presentation after him. Thank you very much. We will try to keep the mood, I promise. And thank you, Ross, very much for being here. I'm Marcelo Joffre, Vice President of Procurement, Supply Chain, and Corporate Security for Pan American Energy. And I have the privilege to interview, even though I'm not a journalist, to interview Ross Stewart. Ross serves as the Vice President of Commercial and Corporate Development for Continental Resources. Ross and his team are responsible for land division orders, land administration, and business development. Mr. Stewart has over 17 years of experience in land and business development across the oil and gas industry. Mr. Stewart is a member of the American Association of Professional Landmen, is a certified professional landman, and was awarded the 40 Under 40 honor for hard energy in 2025. He holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration in Energy Management from the University of Oklahoma. Thank you very much, Ross, for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time for this interview. And as Ariel said, we are going to share to the crowd, to you, the partnership between Pan American and Continental, bridging Permian and Vaca Muerta. So Ross, thank you very much. Please give us a brief introduction, a brief history of Continental Energy.
Sure. First, thank you very much for having me. It's truly an honor to represent Continental amongst so many great industry professionals, regulatory professionals, helping the Vaca Muerta and, more importantly, Argentina thrive. So you actually have the clicker over there, I think, Marcelo, if you can click to the next slide. I'm going to give a decent history of Continental because I think it's important to frame up why Continental invested in Argentina and why Argentina is going to be a big part of Continental's future. So Continental initially was founded in 1967 by Mr. Harold Hamm, who a lot of you either probably know or know of. We're an Oklahoma-based company, and really the premise for Continental's founding from Mr. Hamm is exploration mindset. He is an explorationist first and foremost, and always willing to push the envelope and find ways to do things that seem insurmountable at times. So when he founded that in 1967, he had a discovery in the northern part of Oklahoma shortly thereafter, in actually an astroblim, where an asteroid had hit millions and millions of years ago and made an oil discovery under it for vertical oil production up in the northern part of Oklahoma. And that was a huge part of the first growth for Continental Resources that really was the main focus in Oklahoma till probably the mid to early 90s for the most part. And one thing that really took off for Continental is at that point in time, Harold was seeing the technology being developed for horizontal drilling. But what a lot of people don't realize is when horizontal drilling was initially put in place, most of it was primarily focused on gas reservoirs. There was a lot of discussion about, can you actually extract oil horizontally through shale development? The Barnett Shale, some of the other shale reservoirs were really the main focus for it. And Harold had a vision for something in North Dakota, actually South Dakota. Brad would know. He's back there. Cedar Hills, which is the first full unit, 25, 30,000 acre unit, fully developed for oil horizontally. So we talk about horizontal drilling and what it's done, and it's done immense things. But Harold saw the vision for actually developing oil horizontally, as a lot of that was being done for gas development. And that now is known broadly as the Williston Basin for Continental. So we have a huge footprint in the Williston Basin. And for roughly 40 to 50 years, Continental was a two-basin company. We were in the Williston Basin in North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and we were in the Anadarko Basin in Oklahoma, which is where I mentioned our first kind of discovery that Harold had on the Ames astroblim. And those areas were primarily developed through shale development, the Woodford and the Sycamore, as we would call it, in Oklahoma, also known as the Barnett for those in Permian, and then the Bakken and the Three Forks up in the Williston. And that was a big move for the company. It grew the company astronomically, as you can see on the slide. And we continued to develop those assets. And then in about 2020, shortly after the pandemic hit, we saw an opportunity to continue to grow through oil reservoirs. And really the first one of those was in the Powder River Basin in Wyoming. Powder River Basin's been a long-standing basin in the state of Wyoming. And the Niobrara Shale specifically is a very heavy oil-rich shale. It is actually Continental's oiliest basin, oilier than the Permian from a GOR and API gravity standpoint. And we made about three acquisitions roughly in about a year up there to core up that position, and have recently done another one to where we've got roughly 400,000 acres in the Powder River Basin now, drilling horizontal oil shale. Okay, so in the Anadarko Basin with the Woodford and the Sycamore, horizontal oil shale also. And shortly thereafter, from the Powder River Basin standpoint, we had an opportunity to enter the Permian Basin through an acquisition. And that acquisition consisted of about 100,000 acres on the Delaware side of the basin. And we made that acquisition from Pioneer Resources in 2021. And what a lot of people don't know, some of you may, is Continental actually had about 80,000 acres in the Permian prior to making that acquisition. And the way we had that acreage, like I said, an exploration-based company, is we had taken our learnings from the Woodford and the Sycamore in Oklahoma and applied them on a cross-section literally 500 to 600 miles long from Oklahoma to the Permian Basin, and saw that there was something there that was very similar to what we had in the Anadarko Basin. And we went and leased that acreage, some of it from the state of Texas, some of it from fee mineral owners. And when we bought Pioneer, we had already had about the amount of acres that we purchased from them. And to date, we've got about 325,000 acres in the Permian Basin. So holistically as a company, we produce roughly 500,000 BOE per day. We're headquartered in Oklahoma City, so go Thunder, Boomer Sooner for anybody in here. And we've got about 1,400 employees, mainly 900, 800-ish in Oklahoma City, and then in our respective field offices throughout the country. So on the next slide, if you can. Oh, I do have it now? Sorry. Oh, there we go. So this is just a general look at our basins in the lower 48, but after we had been developing most of our domestic, what we would call them basins with the Powder River, the Williston, the Anadarko, and the Permian, we had an opportunity to enter into Turkey on a JV, which was really our first international expedition, if you will, which was put in place by a partner that we have with Transatlantic and TPAO, the Turkish state-owned entity, which is more of an exploration focus, as you can imagine, the way I've talked about exploration. And that's ongoing as we speak. We're drilling test wells and trying to prove up that reservoir. That's been in place for roughly 9 months now. And shortly thereafter came Argentina. And really the way that Argentina transpired is we knew what the resource was. It's hard to ignore it. I think it's probably the best, if not one of the best shale reservoirs in the world. And that came to fruition through something that we'll talk about a little bit with our great partnership with Pan American for us to expand into yet another country to where we're currently in 3 countries when Continental over 58 years was in 1. So that's a high-level overview of Continental. Hopefully that's helpful for people that weren't familiar with Continental, and ready to get into questions if you are, Marcelo.
Thank you very much. Very impressive, really very impressive. Given that Continental is a pioneer in the shale revolution, what are the factors that Vaca Muerta made the ideal destination for Continental to growth internationally, and why Pan American Energy?
Yes, so the first thing for Vaca Muerta in Argentina for Continental was, like I said, the rock. It all starts with the rock at Continental, and when you look at that, it is extremely impressive what kind of rock there is in Argentina, specifically the Vaca Muerta, but there's a lot of other rock in the country too that's not specifically just the Vaca Muerta. And once we started looking at that more, we were actually introduced to Pan American, the great Bulgaroni family, Mariana right here, Alex, and really what started with us from the sense of one, entering the basin, and two, the partnership with Pan American, was understanding more about regulatory framework, timing of operations, ability to take away product, growth potential. And we essentially got comfortable with all of that from having discussions with Pan American and them being incredibly open and transparent with us and allowing us to get up that learning curve, which was a big part of that for us on things other than just the subsurface. And, you know, more importantly, the culture between the companies. Privately owned, heavy family involvement. It's just really interesting whenever we sit in meetings together, whether it be in Buenos Aires or in Oklahoma City. It almost seems like we should have been connected long before, the way that we all interact. So it was pretty much a no-brainer for us once we started having those discussions and understood more about the basin and really more about Pan American, which it was hard to turn away from.
Thank you very much for the nice words. In our partnership, Pan American will operate the assets, and you will provide all the expertise and unconventional and all the history you have with the shale revolution. How do Continental unique capabilities accelerate and enhance the development for Pan American and in Vaca Muerta?
Yeah, so I showed on the prior slide, Continental operates roughly 5,000 wells. We've drilled roughly 3,000 horizontal wells. We're drilling horizontal wells right now in the Permian and in the Williston that exceed 3.5 miles in lateral length. So we're very good at drilling horizontal wells. There's actually a really neat area in southern Oklahoma where we drill the Woodford, and we'll drill 12, 13,000 feet deep, Mitch, somewhere around there, 2 to 3 miles long, and you can go a mile over, literally a mile over off Interstate I-35, and you will see the Woodford outcropped. You will see it on the surface, and we are drilling it 12, 13,000 feet underground a mile away. There are drastic subsurface changes in the southern Anadarko Basin. So from a drilling expertise, I think we've got the best drilling group in the lower 48. I would die on that hill. I think they're phenomenal. And reservoir classification for spacing, recovery, geologic success. One thing that I think we've learned from the Permian and from other areas that may dovetail into another discussion is I don't know that we've looked back as an industry very much domestically and said, we didn't drill enough wells in that unit. I think we typically say we drilled too many wells in that unit, especially looking back 10, 15 years when the Permian Basin was really kind of at the peak of where the Vaca Muerta is right now. I mean, Vaca Muerta is at roughly 3,000 wells today. I think the Delaware Basin alone, from horizontal standpoint, I think the Delaware Basin alone is somewhere around 30,000 horizontal wells to date. But where the Vaca Muerta is 3,000 wells in is far advanced to where the Permian Basin was 3,000 wells in. It is not even comparable how far advanced the recovery of those resources are at this point in time. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Continental will also operate Los Tolos as an operator that you already purchased a few months ago from Plus Petrol. From a supply chain perspective, what do you see as the primary challenges you're going to face in Argentina?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Northern Hub or Los Todos dos Oeste in general, a lot of it, in my opinion, is logistics. From a broad spectrum, it could be sand logistics, it could be water logistics, it could be transportation of chemicals, equipment. Another thing similarly to the Permian is the Permian was a declining conventional asset. It was known for a long time as the most uneconomic oil field in the world when it was a declining conventional asset, and it's just exploded. I think you're seeing a similar cadence in the Vaca Muerta in Argentina with that. So as this continues to expand, the logistics behind updating infrastructure, roads, I think rail is something that has got to be discussed at some point, particularly with sand. We believe that sand quality matters when you complete wells, and having more logistical flow for those products is something that I think will be the biggest focal point in us in the Northern Hub and throughout the basin.
Thank you very much. There's an amazing and big crowd from Argentina here. Many providers, suppliers of all types. They come every year to this event. Thank you very much to all of them. But what's the message you have for the local companies how important they will be in Argentina for your development and our development together.
Incredibly development. I'll echo what our COO said the other day at a deal in Oklahoma City. We need you. We need people coming into the basin. And really the way I view it, and Mariana and I were talking about this a little bit, there's a pie right now in Argentina, and everybody has kind of their slice of the pie. That pie is growing. It is going to get bigger. Horacio just showed it. I mean, it is going to get bigger. And Diane is my math person at the company, but if I have 10% of $100, I'm not going to turn my nose up at having 5% of $1 million. If that's the opportunity for me to still have a piece of a growing pie, that is something that I'm absolutely interested in. And for us as a company, and I think as an industry in the Vaca Muerta, you have to learn fast. And a lot of times you have to fail fast. That comes from operations, that comes from exploration, but you have to be willing to expand and incrementally grow through technology, through learnings, through collaboration. So I guess my sentiment to everyone would be, there is an opportunity to be a part of that pie, and somebody's going to take advantage of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As we already know, we, as the chamber, and myself as a member of the chamber from the beginning of the chamber, 10 years ago, when we did this type of events in a small brewery, I don't see Ariel here. It's crazy how the chamber has grown. And we always dream of bringing operators and bringing providers from US to Argentina. So if you had the chance to just one key message to US investors, given that you took the first step to go to Argentina, and also not only to the investors, to the local providers, to the US provider, what that message would be?
Can I have more than one message?
5.
I'm gonna beat this drum as much as I can. The Rock. There is going to be a place, and there's going to be production, and there's going to be growth in this basin. It's just all it comes down to. 2, one thing that we were very focused on going into it and been very, very pleased with, I don't know if Daniel is here, but Daniel Gonzalez, we've met with his group a lot, just generally trying to understand regulatory framework. The federal government is putting things in place to say yes, not to say no. Rigi is a great example of that. I think Horacio mentioned that a minute ago. And that was one thing that we had looked at, is there are opportunities to invest and incentivize that investment from Argentina. On the flip side of that, we're trying to look at what is going on in the United States to help solidify that investment. And the DFC that the United States runs from a financial corporation, they are putting in place insurance for protection for people to invest into numerous countries, including Argentina. And what's really unique about that is I'm not an insurance provider, but I know enough about people that provide insurance don't provide it on stuff that they're not comfortable providing it on because they don't think it's going to happen. They're providing insurance on items for Argentina because they are confident in the investment behind it. So you've got the rock quality. You've got the support of the federal level of Argentina. You absolutely have it at the provincial level. I don't know where Governor Figueroa went, but he absolutely feel like we have that support from him. And then now you have it from the United States perspective also. So we are in it. We're going to continue to be in it. And like I said, we need your guys' help from the service side because there's a pie and somebody's going to get the pieces of it.
Great. Thank you very much, Ross. That was the last question, and thank you everyone for being here. And I say to the operators and to the providers of US, let's follow this partnership, this example, how we did this partnership. And there are many opportunities in Argentina for local providers from US, so don't be scared. The rock is the rock, and that's the most important thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue with the program. And now I want to say thanks to the members of the organizing committee. All these people have been working for about 6 months in order to make this happen. And I want to recognize Gabriel Aguilar, Cristian Cerne, Federico Cerviño, Diego de la Vega, Gonzalo Echegaray, Carlos Frey, Pablo Ferrante, Federico Galloso, Guillermo Grimoldi, Mariano Jasperúe, Luis Pavón, Diego Robles, Gustavo Rossi, Esteban Sánchez, Federico Tagliani y Alberto Vázquez. Thank you guys, you are amazing. And I have a special recognition for Mariana Bulgeroni and Marcelo Joffre, that they have been wonderful in order to help us to extend our reach on US, and also in order to be sure that we can help the local suppliers in order to bridge the connection with US. So Mariana, Marcelo, thank you very much. And I want to also recognize her team, that is Daniela and Emiliano, and the people from the agency, the Pro Argentina, that is, we have several ones, Victoria Castro, Andres, and Pablo. So thank you very much, guys. Wonderful show. Okay, finally we are going to have a break. Okay, it's a 10-minute break, so Horacio talked about efficiency. We need to be efficient, okay? So take a break, and in 10 minutes come back, and please have a seat, and we continue.
We are Pan American Energy, a leading global energy company. We are an organization of more than 21,000 men and women who every day bring sustainable and affordable energy to the global markets. Over the last 15 years, we've invested on average over $1.5 billion every year. We produce around 250,000 barrels of oil equivalent